Another Gren Twigs video. I went digging through my drawers and found my mic, so hopefully this audio is coming through a little bit better, but we'll see. So last time I talked about automatic currying in Gren and talked about function, the type signature for functions and that syntax. Today I'm going to talk about another way that you can call functions where you are something called a function pipeline. You pipe the results of a function into another function. I'm going to do that in the Gren REPL, and I'm going to make a new function, just call it double, and it takes a number and doubles it. Forgive me, I am not used to typing with a microphone sitting between my wrists, which is where my microphone currently is. We'll see if it's worth it. Hopefully it's worth it. So yeah, Gren saw, hey, we're trying to multiply things, so I definitely has to be a number, and it's a double is a function that takes a number, returns a number. Great, I can double 2 and I get 4, I can double 4 and I get 8, and so on. Now another way to call functions in Gren is, notice also there's no commas separating parameters, there's no parentheses for the param list. One of the reasons for that is the currying that I mentioned before. Like there's not as strict of a distinction between, you know, the function and the full list of parameters that it takes. And also there's various ways you can call functions, which makes sense. Gren is a functional language, so functions everywhere you look. What was I talking about? A different way to call functions. So instead of double 5, we can say 5, the parameter, do this little arrow, and then the function. What this little arrow does is it takes the result of whatever's on this side, and it uses it as the parameter for the function on this side. So we get 10. The nice thing about that is that you can chain them together a little easier. So double, 40. Instead of trying to say double 5 and then we'd have to double that, and then we do need parentheses, because if we didn't put parentheses like that, Gren would think that double is the first parameter we're trying to pass to this function, but it's not. We want the results of this, and then we wanted to do it again. So it's just a little bit of a nicer way to do that. It really shines when you're doing things on multiple lines. So you know, I'll get to that in a minute. I'll switch over to some docs and show you what it looks like on multiple lines, because first I want to show you what it looks like with multiple parameters. So double only takes one parameter. Let's look at this string.repeat function. This is in the core library for Gren. And it's a function that takes an int. We can assume that that is how many times you want to repeat the string, which is the second parameter, and it returns a string. So let's try it, see if our assumption is correct. Yeah, ABC, ABC, ABC. That parameter order might look a little weird to you. If you're not used to this, you might write a repeat function and think about, okay, well, I'm repeating a string, so that should be the first argument, and then the next argument might be how many times do I want to repeat it. In Gren, the thing you're acting on, the string in this case, you're usually going to see that as the last parameter in a function, because let me remind you, when we did double 5, I said the result of everything on this side gets passed to the function on this side. So this is the name of a function, sure. But what happens if I do string.repeat 3? Whoops, well, 34, doesn't matter. I have a function. Remember from the currying episode, I didn't use the full parameter list. I only used the first parameter. So I called repeat 34, and I got a function that takes a string and returns a string. So that means I might have a string, yo, that I want to send through this pipeline and repeat it 3 times. So the result of this side, yo, the string yo, is going to be sent as the parameter to this, whoops, I'm not in Vim, to this function, string.repeat3. That's the function that takes a string and returns a string. Another way you can think of it is just it's going to be passed as the last parameter to this function, but it actually kind of helps if you think about it in terms of what you have here. String.repeat is a function, and it's going to receive this value. Yo, yo, yo. Again, where this comes in handy is, you know, when you have something, especially in functional language like this, you have some value, and you're typically iterating on it. You're operating on it using various functions. So maybe you ended up with some string from an API call or reading a file or something, and it needs to be repeated twice, but it also needs to be made uppercase. So that chaining of function calls is where you're typically going to see this pipeline operator. And you're typically going to see the parameter that is the main thing you're operating on as the last parameter in a parameter list for these types of functions because of these function pipelines. I said I would show, so if you go to grenlang.org/book, if you forget where that is, you can just go to the grenlang.org website, click learn. There's a link to the book there. On the book page, if you go to the functions page, it shows you, yeah, so here, this is what it looks like on multiple lines. So we're getting the number of seconds in a year. We have a value 60, which is there's 60 seconds in a minute. Multiply is a function. Yeah, it's this function here. It takes two parameters and multiplies them together. But here we're calling multiply 60. So we're calling multiply with the first parameter. That gives us a function that takes a number and returns a number. We're passing 60, so that's the same as saying multiply 60 times 60. And then that's the result of saying the result of that is multiplied by 24. And then the result of that is multiplied by 365. Another way that you might see functions is anonymous functions. These are functions without a name. This is also important to know because, and they're related because you'll typically see functions that take functions. So the array.map function, if you look at that, the first parameter to the map function is a function. It takes a, that's just anything. A lowercase variable name and a type signature like this is, it's a type variable. It means it can be any type. Gren doesn't care as long as it's consistent within this signature. So some value, it's a function that takes some value and returns a different value. And then the next parameter is an array of those types of values, that first one. And it returns a new array of this modified value. So the way it works is it for every element in this array, it calls this function. So all the A's in this array are going to get converted to B's in this array via this function. Anyway, that's map. You probably know what map is. If you don't, take a look. Maybe that helped. Maybe it just confused you. Why was I talking about map? Yes, because many functions will take functions like this. And that's where you'll typically see anonymous functions. So they're pipelining this array 1, 2, 3, passing that to the result of array.map with this anonymous function that's going to be the mapper. So I will get +1 for each element in this array. And then that new array will get, each element will get multiplied by 2. That is, again, over 5 minutes. I will figure out how to get these down in length. Maybe. We'll see. I will talk to you next time. I have a plan for next time. I think I'm going to talk about pure functions, what that means, and what the benefit is. One, because of the benefits, but also it also explains some of the weirdness in the Elm architecture and creating Gren applications. We'll get back into the map code, but that'll be next time. Thanks.